We found each other in this huge world and we're crazy about each other, you know? And we now have this family that's, you know, we've gotten to experience in our 40s. And he's got 2 little girls, so it's a big life for him now. And I'm just so glad to have met
Keith Urban remained silent for weeks. No interviews, no statements, just silence after a 19-year marriage ended. However, that silence broke when he eventually returned to the stage. One word changed in the middle of a song he had been singing for years, and the entire room sensed it. It was a sharp, tired honesty, not anger. The moment was repeatedly replayed by fans who debated its meaning and intended audience. Was this simply a real-time heartbreak scenario? Or was Keith at last allowing the music to speak for itself instead of a press release? We're going to examine what actually changed tonight. More truth can be found in a performer's voice, the lyrics, and the missing love songs than in any headline. Verified reporting will be our standard. To determine what the music is truly telling us, highlight the things that fans found noteworthy and keep emotion and conjecture apart. I'd like to help more people find it if stories like this captivate you. Hit the bell, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Are we hearing what we want to hear? Or did the songs reveal anything new? The next in-depth analysis is shaped by your viewpoint, a summary of the divorce and the lack of media coverage. The world finally saw what insiders had been whispering about for months in print when the news broke in late September 2025. After 19 years of marriage, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had formally separated. After 19 years of marriage, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban split up. According to People, the well-known phrase that ends so many long relationships, irreconcilable differences, was cited in the confidential filing filed in Davidson County, Tennessee. But behind those simple words lay nearly 2 decades of shared dreams, sacrifices, and quiet struggles that the public had never truly seen. As stated by People, prior to the filing of the legal documents, Nicole and Keith were already living apart. It was a long time coming, according to friends of the couple, who said that long before it was made public, their emotional distance from one another had gradually increased. People are told by sources the fact that Keith Urban moved out and established his own place was a turning point in Nicole Kidman's separation from him. The fairy tale would eventually turn into reality after that action. Nicole's reaction to the breakup was exactly what everyone had anticipated: calm, composed, and dignified. She didn't post emotional statements or grant interviews. Rather, she focused on her 2 daughters, Faith Margaret and Sunday Rose. Resolute in preserving their privacy and normalcy, she was elegant but reserved when she appeared in public, grinning for the cameras while silently holding her daughter's hands. According to a person close to her, she didn't want this, but had come to terms with the fact that the time had come. The public sympathy for her only grew as a result of her quiet grace, the image of fortitude in the face of tragedy. Keith, however, also opted for silence. His definition of silence, however, was never motionless. He stayed out of the public eye and kept quiet about the divorce for weeks. No interviews, no press releases, and no social media posts. Those who knew him, however, knew that silence was short-lived. For Keith Urban, melody has always been the embodiment of emotion. His truth is sung rather than spoken. It became evident that the music would speak for him when he eventually took the stage again. The tone of his voice, the missing songs, and the lyrics all changed. It was all there, hidden between the chords, because music can become a form of confession when words fail. Keith's emotional breakdown and recovery. Keith Urban retreated in the weeks after the divorce was announced, retreating into a private, quiet world where memories and music coexist. The man was now alone in his Nashville studio, surrounded by silence that no guitar riff could break, after years of performing nightly in front of thousands of fans. According to friends, he was using music as the only method he knew to process everything. He appeared thinner, quieter, and more reflective than usual, according to those who had seen him in those early weeks. He frequently stayed up late strumming unfinished songs that were never heard outside the room. Keith was no stranger to confronting himself in the dark. His life had already been filled with upheaval and healing before he ever met Nicole. He was born in New Zealand, grew up in Australia, and discovered that country music was both his greatest strength and weakness. By his 20s, he was famous, but with it came temptation. In previous interviews, he talked candidly about the impact alcohol and addiction had on his early career, characterizing himself as a man who was always trying to escape the chaos in his own mind. Then came Nicole when they married in 2006. Keith had to make a decision. He went to treatment for alcohol abuse a few months after they were married, a decision he later attributed to her love and intervention. In an interview with the Rolling Stone, he once recalled her steadfast support and said, "She saved my life," his voice breaking. When it would have been simpler to leave, Nicole supported him and helped him regain the equilibrium he had lost. She served as his rock, the stability of his restless heart, and the calm in his storm for almost 20 years. Anchors can slip though, and Keith was confronted by the same demons he believed he had left behind when Nicole eventually left. According to friends, he was having a hard time adjusting and was relying a lot on his close friends, bandmates, tour crew, and a few reliable friends who had supported him during his darkest moments. But this time, the struggle went beyond simply maintaining sobriety. Without the woman who had once kept him together, it was about finding his identity again. He would withdraw to his studio, the only location where he could still manage the noise night after night. Only the hum of amplifiers and the soft ring of guitar strings could be heard in the room that had once been filled with family get-togethers and laughter. His metamorphosis started in that isolation. Slowly, the songs that began as heartbreak evolved into something else: confessions, reflections, and difficult to answer questions. Insiders described him as poured into his work, writing obsessively, sometimes recording the same track for hours. That creative storm produced something unpolished and uncommercial. It was painfully honest, unvarnished, and raw. He never intended to share his diary, and each lyric felt like a page torn from it. Despite the burden of loss, those close to him said this time represented a creative rebirth. Redeeming and resilient songs had been the foundation of Keith Urban's career. He was living them all over again now, but this time, saving his marriage wasn't the goal of the redemption. He was trying to save himself. At one point, she rescued him from his troubles. However, those demons returned when she eventually left, and this time, Keith didn't hide. He took up his guitar, confronted them, and made music out of every bit of suffering. Soon those tunes would disclose more than words could, because Keith Urban's silence would end the next time he took the stage. Not through interviews or headlines, but through the power of the songs that had suddenly taken on an entirely new meaning. Pause for a moment. You're obviously just as engrossed in this story as we are if you're still watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next installment of Keith and Nicole's story, and hit the like button to help more people find it. The words were overshadowed by the lyrics. The world was unsure of what to anticipate when Keith Urban eventually made his way back to the stage. Would he continue to play as if nothing had changed, disregarding the headlines? Or would the emotions he'd concealed be exposed by the music itself? Within minutes, fans received their response, not in the form of a statement or announcement, but in the form of a single word that had a greater impact than any press release ever could. It took place while he was performing "You'll Think of Me," one of his favorite songs. It had been a melancholy hymn about heartbreak, coming to terms with it, and moving on for years. A song that long before Nicole came into his life had helped him get through difficult times. However, Keith gave the lyrics a subtle, heartbreaking twist that evening, just a few days after the divorce became public. He paused for a heartbeat before singing, "Take your space and take your reasons," and then he added, "Take your unreasonable reason." He went even farther in his subsequent concert performance, introducing an emotional variation that immediately captured the attention of the audience. "Take your dumb nonsense justifications." Taste of Country claims that following Nicole Kidman's split, Keith Urban added a new line to the song "You'll Think of Me." Fans reacted to this change in a big way on the internet, calling it Keith's best performance in years. Fans were hit with the word irrational, like a confession. It was sarcastic heartbreak rather than anger, a word that seemed too precise and incisive to be a coincidence. Social media exploded in a matter of hours. "That wasn't just a lyric change," a fan commented on Twitter. "That was Keith's way of expressing what he was unable to put into words. He's hurting," said another YouTube commenter. "It's evident in his voice." It wasn't a random lyric. Each fan page and gossip website repeated the same scene, slowed it down, and examined it like a detective looking for a secret meaning. The media also took notice. Fans immediately linked his split to the moment, which Taste of Country described as a dramatic lyrical shift. People referred to it as a subtle but emotional change that was a reflection of when his divorce occurred. This was not a sound of resentment to those who had spent years following his career. It was a man using music, the only language he really understood, to process loss in real time. However, it wasn't the only song that caused controversy. During the same run of shows, fans realized Keith had quietly removed The Fighter from his set list. Long regarded as a love letter to Nicole, the 2016 release was a duet honoring the resilience of their marriage following years of hardship. Keith sings in the song to a partner who fears getting hurt again. "What if I trip and fall? I will not allow you to fall. What if I start crying? I will never bring you to tears." She even starred in the music video for the song, which was their anthem for years. However, The Fighter vanished after the divorce news leak. Keith started playing older, more reflective songs in its stead, songs like Somebody Like You and Blue Ain't Your Color, songs about regret and longing. He did not respond when fans questioned him about why he had dropped the duet. He didn't have to. The quiet was sufficient, as was later mentioned. Fans who have long connected The Fighter's absence from his live performances to his romance with Nicole have taken notice. Then there was another shock. The Fighter resurfaced weeks later, but with a twist. People claimed that Keith Urban altered the lyrics of a song that was influenced by Nicole Kidman's romance in order to make reference to Maggie, the new guitarist. Keith changed the song's lyrics to mention Maggie Baugh, his guitarist, rather than Nicole. While some fans initially laughed, others noticed something more profound. In real time, a man is rewriting his own history. It was perfectly expressed by one Twitter user. He altered the meaning of the song, not just the lyrics. He's taking back his song. It was also what Keith stopped singing, not just what he sang. Fans' online set list revealed that he had covertly deleted a number of love songs associated with Nicole, such as Parallel Line and Gemini, which were both composed at the height of their marriage. Once a mainstay of his performances, those songs were full of references to his wife and romantic imagery. Their sudden absence spoke volumes. His audience perceived it as a kind of silent eraser, the musical counterpart of taking framed pictures down from a wall that once had a homey vibe. Storytelling, transforming heartache into melody, and transforming pain into poetry have always been the foundations of country music. It became survival for Keith. His emotional recovery seemed to be charted by every lyric change, song that was absent, and intentional pause between words. He wasn't expressing anger or trying to win people over. By using rhyme and rhythm rather than interviews and press conferences, he was taking back control of his story. Under a concert video, a fan commented, "This isn't the Keith we've known for years. The one who truly shines through his songs is this one. You can hear it in the way he plays now," said another. "It's about feeling, not about being flawless." He even changed the tone of his performances. The polished showman who grinned at every note was no more. His voice was cracked now. On some lines, his expressions remained longer. There would be a rise in applause, but Keith didn't seem to care as much. Every lyric seemed to be a confession, every chord a release. At a live performance of Making Memories of Us, Keith paused before the last verse in a particularly poignant moment. Just enough tears filled his eyes for admirers to see. The emotion was evident despite its subtlety. The ensuing cheering wasn't raucous or frantic, it was respectful, as though everyone in the audience realized that they were watching a man deal with heartbreak rather than merely a performance. And for that reason, this part of Keith Urban's story was so potent. He didn't use interviews or scandal to expose Nicole. He achieved this through a much more intimate method, allowing his music to express what words could never. Every missing love song and changed lyric served as a clue in a bigger emotional map, one that depicted a man reclaiming his story while also grieving, because it's not always necessary to shout the truth. Only people who have experienced heartbreak can really hear it when it's whispered between the lyrics of a song. Thus, Keith Urban used the same song, The Fighter, to end practically every significant performance for almost 10 years due to symbolic omissions. It wasn't just a favorite among fans. In 2016, a musical vow was composed. The song had been a passionate ode to his marriage, a conversation between two individuals vowing to shield one another from the hurt of the past. Nicole even made an appearance in the original music video, grinning next to him while they both mouthed the lyrics. It represented all that their love was for years: hope, healing, and loyalty. However, that song disappeared following the divorce. No formal statement, explanation, or announcement was made. The Fighter just vanished from his lists of sets. Those who had been attending Keith's performances for years noticed the change right away. The song that used to close every performance, often with Keith grinning at the audience, thanking them and dedicating it to his lovely wife, was no longer played, and silence took its place. The omission was not overlooked according to reports, with people pointing out that Keith's post-divorce concerts had a distinctly different tone. Instead of concluding with romantic tunes, he now preferred reflective and resilient anthems. Songs like You'll Think of Me, Days Go By, and Somebody Like You once again took center stage. Songs about self-reliance, loss, and rediscovery. His performances were warm and romantic before the divorce, an artist honoring a love he thought would endure forever. The setlist revealed a different story after the divorce. According to Yahoo Entertainment, a number of songs that had been associated with Nicole for a long time were subtly released, including Female, Gemini, and Parallel Line. There had once been layers of personal significance attached to each of those. Many people had taken Gemini in particular as a lighthearted, personal homage to Nicole. Keith never said it aloud, but its abrupt disappearance sent a strong message. For devoted fans, it was like watching someone meticulously remove the music from his own romantic tale. Nevertheless, it was devoid of resentment, anger, or retaliation. The omissions seemed purposeful, even elegant, if anything. Keith seemed to be making changes to his life in real time, deleting the parts that no longer represented him. Perhaps this was not retaliation, perhaps it was Eraser, the moving on musical. Keith was doing more than simply changing his performances when he eliminated those songs. His identity as an artist was being rewritten. His music and Nicole's presence had been entwined for almost 2 decades. She served as his anchor, his partner, and his muse. However, something new was now reflected in his concerts. Refine yourself, a man taking ownership of his art back. That decision had a subdued symbolism. Songs about endurance, freedom, and change had taken the place of love songs about her. He was singing for himself rather than for someone else, and that distinction was important to a musician like Keith. His most recent performances, according to some fans, felt more intimate and stripped down. It's like he's not performing for the cameras anymore, one fan commented on the internet. He's only doing it for the music. Someone else commented, the set feels heavier now, but also more real, like he's working through something right in front of us. What Keith left out of his performance was just as telling as what he included. Every song was taken out, every lyric has been revised, every interlude between verses contributed to a more comprehensive emotional declaration. He didn't have to express his pain. His choices, his curation, and his silence all spoke for him. Through their songs, country music artists frequently share heartbreaking tales. Keith Urban explained to him what he didn't know. Additionally, there are instances when unheard songs reveal more truth than words ever could. His pain is decoded by fans. Fans turned into detectives as soon as Keith Urban started changing his lyrics, physical coded message. Every performance, every song that was missing, and every emotional pause were all replayed and examined. Videos of his performances went viral on TikTok and X, formerly Twitter, with captions like, "Keith's heartbreak is showing on stage." It wasn't just a song either, it was therapy. His live performances became a digital sensation as hashtags like Keith Unfiltered, The Fighter Gone, and Urban Speaks Through songs began to trend within days. In a single day, a video that went viral from a performance in Pennsylvania in which Keith substituted "take your unreasonable reasons" for "take your space and take your reasons" received over 1 million views. There was a lot of emotion in the comments. One admirer commented, "You can feel the pain in his voice. That lyric change hit harder than any interview could." Another person said, "He's obviously referring to Nicole." Others had a different perspective. Keith isn't being mean, he's simply being honest. Artists do just that. They transform heartache into truth. However, not everybody was in agreement. Rewriting love songs so soon after the divorce was deemed a bit too personal by some fans, while others felt uneasy and praised the changes as brave and raw. As one admirer put it, "It feels like he's airing private pain on stage." "No, this is him healing in public," said another. "We are merely observing it." The discussion swiftly spread to the mainstream media. According to Yahoo Entertainment's coverage of the widely shared setlist controversy, Keith Urban's minor stage adjustments have raised rumors that he is using his performance as a way to cope with his heartbreak. People emphasized the change in tone, reporting that his performances now carry a weight and sincerity that fans haven't seen in years, while TMZ characterized his shows as a public emotional release. One thing was almost universally agreed upon in online fan communities: the real Keith Urban was this. The happy showman who crafted every emotion into a camera-ready shot was no longer there. Now, the man on stage appeared completely human, worn out, emotional, and naked. There were cracks in his voice where there had never been any. His silences were longer. Even his guitar solos sounded heavier, more cathartic than spectacular. Some admirers even likened his current performances to the unadulterated passion of his early career before his edges were softened by fame. This is the Keith from the early 2000s again. On Reddit, one person commented, "You can tell he's feeling every note. He's not just performing songs anymore," another person said. "He's coming clean." The emotional gap between media framing and fan interpretation deepened as the video spread. Fans witnessed genuineness and heartache. The tabloids saw storylines. The onstage emotion was disputed by commentators as either intentional artistry or true vulnerability. But it might have been both. Keith Urban had always put his heart on the strings of his guitar, but this time there was just a man enduring his suffering in front of an unblinking audience. No filter, no flawless wording, no happy ending. Everyone agreed on one thing: he was petty, while others said he was brave. They had never witnessed Keith Urban so unpolished. Who Keith really was behind the scenes. Keith Urban was a young boy in Queensland, Australia, playing a beaten guitar in his parents' living room before the lights, fame, and sold-out arenas. He was first exposed to Don Williams and Johnny Cash by his father, a store clerk who loved country music. His mother, on the other hand, quietly believed that her son was destined for more and supported his inventiveness. Keith's childhood, however, wasn't easy. Home wasn't always quiet and money was scarce. The one constant that could block out the sounds around him was music, which became his escape. Keith was already performing in small pubs by the time he was in his teens, pursuing his dream of traveling across oceans. However, fame brought with it a certain loneliness of its own. Everything he had once attempted to suppress, the fear, the uncertainty, the unwavering sense that success could disappear at any time, was magnified by Nashville's bright lights. Years later, he acknowledged in interviews that he frequently felt alienated in his own life, stating, "I always felt I had to keep performing just to be loved." That pressure turned into his shadow. The same passion that propelled his ascent started to consume him by his late 20s. He went down a darker path as a result of the long tour nights, temptations, and restless energy. He started abusing drugs and alcohol, numbing the fear that nothing would remain if the music stopped. He almost lost it all in a vicious cycle of mayhem and self-destruction. Nicole then arrived. Keith was already a rising country music star when they first met in 2005. In private, though, he was still trying to find equilibrium. Nicole was the complete opposite of everything he had experienced, with her quiet strength and serene poise. She provided him with a firm foundation to cling to. Keith checked himself into a rehab facility in October 2006, just a few months after getting married. Even though it was his third time, something was different this time. Nicole supported him during it all, paying him visits, preserving his privacy, and keeping him from disintegrating. He would reflect on that period of time years later and remark in interviews, "She saved my life." She also did. Nicole was his anchor for almost 20 years. She calmed him when he was restless. She reminded him of his identity whenever he doubted it. She was his constant in a world of flashing lights and fleeting applause. Their tale of love was healing as well as romantic. Keith depended on Nicole, not just loved her. He turned into his reflection, the individual who reflected back the idealized version of himself. However, such intense love can become dependent. That connection, which had previously been a source of strength, began to weigh heavily over time. Keith felt a silent pressure to remain flawless, calm, and unbreakable because of the same stability that had previously saved him. Nicole served as both his source of serenity and a reminder of who he might become in her absence. Therefore, the silence that followed the abrupt departure of that presence was existential rather than merely emotional. In his chaos, she provided the calm. A friend once stated, "The one person who saw the real him when she left, he had to face that chaos alone on stage." And he did precisely that. The tone changed night after night as he sang songs that used to be joyful. It wasn't resentment, vulnerability was the issue. While the once natural smile became infrequent, particularly during Heart Like a Hometown performances, when Keith would project pictures of his daughters, Sunday and Faith, on the screen behind him, fans started to notice unexpected bursts of affection. Although there was always applause for the moment, his face spoke louder than words could. In many respects, his girls served as the emotional link between his past and present because of his unwavering devotion to them. Keith's identity as a father remained constant despite heartbreak. He frequently flew home between tour dates to spend time with his daughters, and those who knew him described him as gentle and fiercely protective. He would frequently say in interviews that they helped him stay grounded. He once remarked, "They're the best part of me," and it was evident. Keith appeared to channel his love for his kids, his music, and his own shaky recovery into his performances in the months following the divorce. He made no effort to conceal his suffering. He changed it. The man who used to rely on someone else to support him was relearning how to stand by himself. Keith Urban wasn't the perfect celebrity that fans had once thought he was, and this time he used his guitar as a lifeline behind the spotlight rather than as an escape. He was a man who had been pieced back together. A father, a son, an artist, and a soul that is still working on reconciling his past. And although there was heartbreak in the world, something more profound was taking place, a new beginning. A brief reminder, admiring these intimate details, verify that you have activated the notification bell and clicked subscribe. Much more about what actually transpired behind the music will be revealed soon. What he actually revealed. Perhaps Nicole Kidman wasn't even exposed by Keith Urban. Perhaps he was revealing himself with each lyric shift, song that was absent, and vocal crack, out of vulnerability rather than rage or retaliation. That occurs when someone's life has become so entwined with another's that losing them is like losing a piece of who you are. Fans thought Keith was making a statement about Nicole when they heard his changed lyrics and noticed that he was eliminating love songs from his performances. However, upon closer inspection, it becomes evident that the true story was about Keith, a man facing his own feelings in front of thousands of people. His music exposed him rather than attacking her. It exposed the reliance, desire, and silent remorse that arise when love takes precedence over all other things. Nicole had been Keith's constant for almost 20 years, the equilibrium to his restlessness, the serenity in his chaos. She had given him a family that kept him grounded, helped him when he fell, and studied him when his career faltered. She became, in many respects, the mirror he used to view himself. So that reflection vanished when she was gone. Keith discovered something he hadn't experienced in years in that emptiness. Without her, the raw reality of who he was, his performances effectively conveyed that. Not a charge, but an admission. It felt as though a man was relearning how to be himself. With each tense line, mellowed chorus, and silent interlude, He wasn't pointing out Nicole's shortcomings. He was highlighting the dangers of overloving someone and giving them so much of yourself that you lose sight of where you end and they start. Keith has always confessed through art. However, it wasn't a tale of heartbreak or celebrity this time. It was about the painful but ultimately healing kind of self-awareness. He revealed to the world something much more human through music, shattering the facade of perfection that had surrounded their marriage for years. A man who breaks, learns, and starts over. Perhaps he didn't reveal Nicole, perhaps he finally revealed his own truth, that he was still looking for peace in the one place he had ever found it, despite his success, fame, and love. The bottom line of a song, one love, two people, and silence broken by music rather than interviews. Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman created an enduring story for almost 2 decades, a fusion of rustic soul and Hollywood elegance, proving that love could endure the spotlight. However, their split did not result in irate outbursts or public arguments. It developed via contrast. Arenas were filled with his voice. The gaps between were filled with her silence. They came up with a final duet together, sung in heartbreak rather than harmony. Keith Urban ultimately sang about more than just heartbreak. He experienced it firsthand. His songs turned into mirrors, capturing the anguish, bewilderment, and bravery associated with letting go. Nicole, on the other hand, demonstrated that sound is not always as powerful as silence. Her self-control wasn't a sign of weakness. Anyone who has ever chosen dignity over drama will be able to relate to this kind of strength. Their tale serves as a reminder that meaningful endings don't always have to be dramatic. The truths that reverberate the longest are sometimes the quietest. The question is yours now. Which silence, Nicole's or Keith's, was more powerful? Was it the woman who transformed heartache into elegance, or the musician who transformed suffering into melody? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Please remember to hit like, subscribe, and enable notifications if this story touched you so you don't miss our next in-depth analysis, because even though this chapter is over, the tale of what followed is just getting started. Furthermore, there's always a new twist in Hollywood waiting to happen. Next time, we'll look at how this breakup's repercussions affect an unexpected person.